Hello, Four Star Nation, and welcome back to the Four Star Sports Show. I'm Wes Pruitt. Brandon Bumgarner is always in the house with me. Tonight, we've got the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Ron Higgins. Been covering LSU Tigers for quite some time. Friend of the show, back on again. Ron, my friend, how are you, sir?
I'm good. Any friend of Tito's homemade vodka is a friend of mine.
They are actually one of our sponsors. Yeah, good
Good
stuff,
news.
man. Good stuff. Ron, the city of Baton Rouge has a lot of eyes on it right now. We're gonna get into it. I guess we'll start with Ed Orgeron. When you look at Coach O, 49-17 overall record at LSU, but he's going what 9-8 since he went 15-0, and the LSU standard is just higher than that.
Yeah, Ed's been someone throughout his career. He's been good at getting jobs, but the one thing he didn't realize is that how do you handle success? And obviously, very poorly. Um, they got to the won the 2019 national championship, but then he had to hire some new people, and all his hires haven't been good. And then just he's been kind of living a little loose and free with the bachelor life, and that doesn't look good when you're losing football games. And so, basically, it came to a point this year where, uh, again, two really questionable hires as offensive defensive coordinator. Uh, just hadn't looked good all year. Got run at 330 yards of Kentucky, got run on, and that was basically that's even when he realized it was done. And listen, if anybody wants to walk up to me and give me $16.9 million to leave, I'll ask him like right now. Uh, really?
Yeah,
Uh, so I understand to the outside world they look at this. I've seen a lot of social media stuff. Outside world, like, how can you fire Ed Orgeron? He just won a national championship 2 years ago, and last year was a COVID year. Well, it's pretty easy when you keep making bad hires and you keep have to pay those people off. By the time LSU pays off Ed and pays off this staff, and then the guys he fired last year, and all the coordinators he's fired over the years, it's almost 35 to $40 million LSU's paying out to people, and it comes to a point where you got to cut your losses. And you've got an AD now who has had a track record of hiring big names. And then listen, in college football, it is so much harder to hire a big name coach than this in any other sport because you can't get a lot of these big name coaches to leave their program. It's just hard to do. I know LSU fans expect magic now because Scott Woodward hired Kim Mulkey,
yeah,
uh, and the best women's coach available. Not she wasn't even available really. She's the best women's coach out there, a Hall of Famer. Just like I'm gonna go get Kim Mulkey and went and got her. LSU fans are now like, well, he can get anybody he wants. Not necessarily so. In college football, is the hardest sport to steal a coach from another program.
Brandon, go ahead.
Yeah, Ron, we went from go Tigers to no Tigers real quick down there in Baton Rouge.
Yeah,
No, go Tigers to no Tigers. No, I completely understand where you're coming from. You're able to fire him. I've seen a good analogy out there on social media as well. You think of it's just not common in college football to see a coach get fired after 2 years after winning a championship. But in a sport like hockey, they will fire you after 3 games after you win a Stanley Cup if you don't win.
yeah,
So there is a very high expectation at Louisiana State University, and I completely understand it because Nick Saban, Les Miles, and Coach O have set that groundwork. They all three have national titles under their belt at LSU. And that's all in my lifetime. I'm 26 years old. So 3 of the years that I've been alive, LSU's won a national title. And like I said, they are very proud of their program down there. And they are one of the few teams in the SEC who can compete with the likes of an Alabama or a Georgia. You can get recruits to LSU. You're close in distance to New Orleans. Baton Rouge is a beautiful city. You know, there's a lot of good people down there, great food. It's a great recruiting place. And did recruiting have anything to do with this decision as well? Because I don't see Coach O's recruiting classes as high as they were when he first came in, you know.
Well, yeah, his last couple now have been top five. His last 2 years been top fives. I think the problem is that I think he had 1 year where about half the class had already left. I mean, by now had gone somewhere else. The retention rate wasn't great. That also happened at Ole Miss too. He had one of his classes, you know, lost a lot of people for whatever reason. I think his recruiting's been fine. It's just he haven't developed players. I mean, he haven't developed people, and you can't just get guys who are great and not develop them. You got to develop them. I mean, as good as Saban is, and he recruits 5- and 4-star guys, he still develops them. I mean, and some of his better players have actually been 3 stars. They've developed. The rare 3-star they get, they develop. So I think the player development has not been great. And again, a little bit of everything. I mean, the player development had been there. I think the recruiting's been good enough to win. I mean, really, it's been good enough to win. They've got a lot of good players, but you got coordinators who really haven't been any good. And you know, when you're LSU and you win a national championship, and you can't hire good coordinators, you got a problem. I mean, you can't go out and get really quality coordinators. You have a problem. You know, I mean, he doesn't even interview Bo Pelini and hires Bo Pelini. I mean, that's a terrible fit. The 2 guys he got this year never had any experience on the FBS level as coordinators. How does that happen with this program? It's got a great tradition. It's, you know, a major college program. What's going on? I mean, and so obviously it comes back. Why can't the head coach hire quality coordinators? And he hadn't been able to. And most of the time, that ends up biting you in the butt, and you get fired. It's happened before here with Bernardo. It happened with him. He had some bad coordinators his last couple of years and got him fired. So a lot of times that happens. But again, you just move on. And I know LSU. A lot of people will say, "Well, you know, LSU is a volatile job." I mean, they fired a guy after 2 years. Listen, LSU's probably had less coaches than anybody else in the past 20 years, and then the SEC. I mean, if you go back and look at all the schools that have been hiring a bunch of head coaches, the fact that LSU is really, since 2000, is just on its 3rd coach.
Yeah,
that's pretty stout. And you start looking around the league, and you can't say that in a lot of places. I mean, look at Tennessee's train wreck. I mean,
watch out for the golf ball.
It's still going strong too.
Yeah, it's still going strong. You know, I mean, and so LSU's been actually pretty stable just because, look, they fired a guy 2 years after they won a national championship. So what? The guy's been here 5 full seasons, and 5 3/4 if you count the interim.
Yeah.
So he has a good sample size, and it was great the year they had 2019. But you got to figure out how to not maintain it, but to understand how you can stay near the top to be a few victories away from getting back there, and you can't drop off the face of the earth like they had.
Well, and that's the thing that really shocked me coming out of that national championship year. I mean, yeah, you lost a lot. I mean, everybody understood that, but I still expected some push to you. I mean, there was nothing. And then this year, to be honest, it's been, I mean, yeah, you beat Florida, but it's been less than desirable once again. Let me ask you this, Ron, is a 2-part question. And it all revolves around Ed Orgeron and LSU. First off, do you think Ed O lands on his feet after this? And then second part is, who do you think LSU has on their mind to replace Ed?
Well, first of all, after this, Ed Orgeron lands in a pile of cash.
Oh, yeah.
Backstroking through millions. Honestly, I don't think if somebody hires him as a head coach somewhere at FBS level, mid-major up, they're making a mistake. I mean, I think that as a head coach, the guy is really, really average. And when you have a head coach who has no answers, that's basically what it's come down to. He has no answers what went wrong. You ask him questions this year about specific things, and he has no answers to it. He has no answers. He's not even in touch with his coordinators. What are they doing with the run game? We need to run more plays out of this formation than that. So why haven't you known that before? I mean, have you been in planning meetings? I mean, at halftime, can't you tell your coaches to make adjustments? So I doubt highly if Ed gets any kind. Look, if Ed gets a job as a head coach, it's like Les Miles getting a job at Kansas. Like, why?
Yeah.
And nobody else wanted to hire Les but Kansas. That's because his buddy was AD there. So who do they go to now? I mean, there's about 3 or 4 guys that I like. I mean, they're going to have to battle USC for James Franklin at Penn State, who I think is a pretty good football coach. When I worked in Memphis for 30 years, I dealt with James at Vanderbilt. And look, when you've gone to 3 straight bowls at Vanderbilt, it's like man, it's like Ricky Bobby and the Magic Man. I mean, how'd you get there? I mean, 2 9 straight wins seasons at Vandy. That's unreal. He's done a good job at Penn State. That's one right off the bat I can think of. I mean, Jimbo's name has been mentioned because he doesn't have a buyout in his contract, which is standard with Jimmy Sexton clients. They don't. That's one thing Sexton clients always go to the bargain table with. I mean, if you really want to hire me, you won't give me I'll be able to leave with having to buy out my own contract. And A&M went for it. Those 2 come to mind. I know the guy from Michigan State's been mentioned. I don't like him at all. I just thought he hadn't done enough. He's 14-12 in 3 years as a head coach. He's 7-0 this year. Hadn't played anybody, and I just not big on him. So I mean, look, I know that Woodward's. I mean, Dabo's another. Dabo Swinney, he'll probably go after him. Woodward's going to go after the best people available. I mean, it wouldn't even surprise me that it wouldn't surprise me to even after Saban. Honestly,
that was actually my next question: was do they reach back out to Nick?
Look, I mean, and the whole thing is, I look at it this way: every man has a price, and if they go to Nick and say, "Listen, how about $15 million a year?" What does Nick do? I mean, that's $5 more million than he's making. He's always said that, he regretted leaving LSU.
That's true.
And so, I don't know how Alabama fans can get mad at him because, he pulled their program out of the dumper too. I mean,
and they're still set up for greatness, even if
yeah, exactly. So, I don't know how they could be mad at him for leaving. And all the LSU fans who hated him all these years because he left, they'll finally shut up. Like, oh, he's back, great. But I don't doubt anybody would Woodward go after anybody because I think somewhere they're getting all this cash. I don't know where they're getting it from because they lost $80 million last year in football in the COVID season, and they're having to pay $35 to $40 million in buyouts, and they have to hire another coach who's going to have to get a huge contract and his staff. I don't know who's financing this stuff. It's not the LSU budget. I mean, who's the secret sugar daddy? Is it Shaq? I mean, is it Shaq? I mean, paying for all these coaches? He's the only guy I know that LSU alum has all this money. You just don't know. But yeah, I think they go after the top line people and see what happens. I mean, one guy who really should be a serious candidate, but I know LSU doesn't believe he isn't because he's at Louisiana Lafayette, is Billy Napier. Billy Napier is a hell of a football coach.
I agree.
He's coached with Dabo Swinney. He's coached with Saban. You watch his offenses on TV; they just kill people. He's 42 years old, very, very likable with the recruits, and so. But there's that LSU snobbery of we can't have a Hardy play from Louisiana Lafayette. That's Louisiana Lafayette. We got to hire somebody bigger than that. Well, he's just as good as a lot of people on that list that maybe not enough experience, but again, but if LSU wants to make a humongous splash, they'll go hire a name, but it better be a pretty good name with a pretty good track record. But again, it's hard to hire championship coaches away from other schools. It's just really difficult.
Go ahead, Brent.
Yeah, one name you didn't mention, and I thought was interesting that a lot of people have said is Hugh Freeze.
Yeah, I would love Hugh Freeze.
I think he's a perfect fit for a place like LSU. Look at what he did at Ole Miss. He turned that program around. He made them nationally relevant, and then he got into a little bit of trouble. I think there's been enough gap for him to be away from the SEC, for him to be able to come back and be a head coach in the SEC again. Honestly, just despite all the Ole Miss fans, I would love to see Hugh Freeze as the head coach at LSU. But also, another name that's been lingering out, and 24/7 Sports reported it today, Lane Kiffin is one of their top candidates.
Yeah,
if there's a perfect spot for Lane Kiffin, it's Ole Miss. But if there is just a spot that God intended for Lane Kiffin to be a head coach at, it would be LSU. This weekend, I know I was joking around with you before we got live. This weekend, I would not be surprised if Lane Kiffin wins this game and walks over to LSU sidelines and signs a contract and shakes the AD's hand, because he's that type of guy. He'll leave you in the middle of the night. You can ask any Tennessee fan that. But, no, on a serious note, let's kind of transition to the game this weekend. How do you think the rest of this season will play out, starting with this weekend, and Coach O knowing that it's over and his players knowing that it's over? I kind of look back to last weekend, and you could tell that LSU team had some fight, because a lot of those guys do love their coach, and I know a lot of players don't like coaches here and there and everything like that, but it just seems like this team down in Louisiana really loves their coach, and they want to fight for him and keep fighting for him. You beat a pretty decent Florida team this weekend, and I know people will be like, well, they lost to Kentucky. Kentucky's not that bad, guys. I hate to say it, but I do think you could have some success this weekend. I know the game's in Oxford. I know it's a 2:30 kick on CBS, but I could honestly see Coach O going into Oxford and getting an upset this weekend. How about yourself?
Well, obviously, he's much better as an interim coach than he is head coach. A lot of times, he has a track record of being a great interim coach. Yeah, they could go in there and they, if they run the ball really well and try to cut down on Ole Miss's possessions. I mean, Ole Miss has just been sick this year how fast they score. I mean, they probably scored at least 10, 12, 15 touchdowns this year in less than a minute. I mean, you look at Arkansas, 15 seconds they get the ball back, 45 seconds. I think that's LSU's biggest worry is how quick Ole Miss can retaliate, and LSU has to control the ball to do that and punch in touchdowns. That said, I mean, I could see, Lane and Ed have had a relationship since, USC in 2000, 2001. But I don't see Lane showing any mercy. If he's going to go for 60, he's going to go for 60. That's just and I think Ed Orgeron would understand that.
Get your popcorn ready.
Yeah, I mean, Lane has a habit of leaving in the middle of the night. I'm sure there's been a lot of his female companions have experienced the same thing, but he's left in the middle of the night. But he is a guy that would really fit LSU. I'm to the point where you almost expect him to be out in the parking lot tailgating before a game. You're like, hey, Lane, it's time to go, coach. Hey, I'll be back in a couple hours, guys.
He slams a beer. Yeah.
Yeah, he'd be a good fit. Back to Hugh Freeze. Personally, that would be my first round draft choice. Knowing Hugh, and I know he and I, we talked probably not about a year, but we talked on and off. I know LSU has always been a place he'd want to coach. The people need to get over the baggage he has. The baggage is in the past. The NCAA probation stuff, and the personal stuff off the field. All I can say is, he and his wife are still together. They made amends and then they carried on. And I think people should kind of look at that and get over it, because I think he's a brilliant football coach. I really do, and he would kill at LSU. And so, yeah, I would go get him first. But LSU has some kind of idea now because of all their Title IX stuff and some of the the NCAA the football violations they have are very are women. What under Orgeron's staff was like a paying the father of a player, not a very good player. I mean, it wasn't even worth the payment really. Uh, and the Odell Beckham, the portable ATM Odell Beckham at the national championship game. That's basically it. I mean, there's not much there. Football. So LSU thinks it has an idea. I mean, because of the Title IX stuff that went on, it basically has to hire somebody who's a monk, who's absolutely perfect. No baggage in anything. And man, every coach has got a little baggage. Even even somebody as good as Penn State coach. I mean, when he was at Vandy, they had a rape case. Players involved in rape. I mean, he threw them off the team, but it's still
still a blemish.
Everybody's got baggage, and I don't know if you're going to hire the perfect, clean, squeaky clean football coach. I don't think that's possible. And honestly, in the SEC, you don't need a squeaky clean football coach. It's a dirty league where you got to get down and do what you can when you're recruit. It's just all there is to it.
Yeah. Ron, when you look at this Ole Miss game coming up, how does this LSU defense stop this NASCAR offense that Ole Miss has?
Well, try to hit Matt Corral as often as possible. I watched the Tennessee Ole Miss game last week all the way through the golf ball throwing and all that at the end, and Lane Kiffin making a really nice grab of a water bottle thrown at him.
Yeah, he did.
That was impressive.
I love the visor toss though. That was the best.
Yeah, he first of all he Odell'd the water bottle, and then all the fans who were FUing him, he threw him a visor, and so they were fighting over it while he walked in, so they couldn't dump any water. The guy's smart. I mean, he really is. You know what he's doing. But Ole Miss, they need to hit Corral as much as possible. I mean, when you carry the ball 32 times as a quarterback, and this is not even like the 1970s option game. I mean, this is a guy a lot of it was designed, some of it wasn't, but 32 carries, and he got nailed a lot, even when he threw the ball. So that would be the best thing for LSU to do is try to hit this guy as often as possible. Try to man up on their receivers. I thought LSU defense played well. I know they give up 42 points. I realize that, but they had 4 picks last week, 1 pick six. They did play pretty well, except for the end of the first half. And they launched a Hail Mary and scored. But honestly, guys, in SEC now, man, if you walk away a 49-42 winner or a 49-35 winner, you feel pretty good. And Ole Miss ran 101 plays last week. That's just sick. So I think LSU's whole thing is they got to take down this pace of the game. They got to take it down somehow. And the best way to do that is offensively, very methodical. Ground it out if they can.
Yeah, Brandon.
Yeah, LSU's run game looked pretty dang good last weekend. I can't remember the running back's name, but he broke Leonard Fournette's single game rushing record in school history, which was pretty impressive to me. You think of a guy like Fournette.
Let me give you a little surprise here. Actually, he broke Darius Geis's single game record, but LSU in their record book has a white space where Darius Geis's name was supposed to be.
Really?
Yeah.
Because of all the stuff that's gone down with Geis.
Uh-huh.
I forgot about that. They did remove
that. Would make a lot of sense.
So you look at LSU's media guy. There's white space. Leonard Fournette, white space. Yeah, he broke Geis's record. Ty Davis Price, who he had 1 less yard last week than he'd had all year to date. He almost equaled the season total.
Nice.
And basically, they just kept running a counter play. They gained over 220 yards just on counter plays. They seem to get onto something, and of course, it's pretty amazing that Dan Mullen.
Yeah, well, as somebody who's watched Dan Mullen's whole career coaching, that does not surprise me that would work against one of his defenses.
Yeah.
A lot of my family's from Starkville, so I do pay attention to the SEC. And when Mullen was at Mississippi State, a lot of people were pissed that he left and went to Florida. I really wasn't. Dan Mullen didn't sell me as a head coach. He's kind of proving that to everybody right now that he can't win the big game, just like he couldn't do it at Mississippi State. And when you look back at Saturday, it just reminded me of a game when he was the coach at Mississippi State. It wasn't that big of a game, but it was a game they absolutely should have won. And it wasn't like he was out-coached. It was just like he was outmanned, you know. Coach O and the offense just kept calling that counter play, like you said. And as soon as they run to the left or to the right on a counter, Florida was having a problem either tackling or getting to the guy who's running the football. And it's always that problem for Dan Mullen. So, yeah, I completely agree with you right there on that, Mr. Ron.
Yeah, I think you're my brother from another mother on Dan Mullen. I've never liked Dan Mullen, honestly. I just he never beat anybody of consequence really at Mississippi State. I mean, his record against Alabama, I think Auburn and LSU was awful. His meal ticket was Dak Prescott, and that got him another job. And you're in Florida, supposedly the best recruiting state in the nation for talent, and you can't get people to basically to win football games for you. Yeah, I've always been. I'm kind of on the page of Dan Mullen. I've never been overly impressed with Dan, and he's always been this guy who's, he's trying to be hip with recruits. I mean, he's always shown his free new Adidas he's got on, he's like the white dude in the room who's like one beat late at a dance, no rhythm. That's kind of Dan Mullen. And to watch him last week, yeah, it reminded me. I've seen that before. I've seen it before. And if he wants to win there, he's going to, first of all, get rid of his defensive coordinator because the guy's been a weight around his neck now for 2 years in a row. And sooner or later you got to cut the cord. Would that help him a lot? I don't know, because he's still Dan Mullen. Like I said, a lot of these coaches, they'll get that 1 or 2 good years and they'll cash it in and go somewhere else, and they'll hit their lottery contract, and they never pan out at the school they're at. That they went to. Look. Ed hit the lottery here. He got his big contract, hit the lottery, and then after that went straight downhill. So, you're not always as you can find the secret to maintain. But this week it'll be a fun game. LSU Ole Miss games are always fun games. You never know what the hell is going to happen. I've been to LSU Ole Miss games where LSU won with 1 second left. I've been to LSU Ole Miss games where LSU couldn't get a playoff because Les Miles went blank in his head. In Oxford, a 25-23 loss that Les Miles was so confused about getting plays in the game that he was so. This is a truth. After this game, I go talk to Houston Nutt, coach at Ole Miss, and me and myself, a guy from the Associated Press, was talking to Houston. He goes, "Yeah, out there the game, I don't know what was going on. I was fixing to call a timeout, and I'm thinking, you don't want to call a timeout there. You just want to let the clock run out on them, like what happened in LSU. Houston Nutt almost got sucked into Les Miles' universe of confusion. But again, that's LSU Ole Miss. Anything can happen. And this is, last year the game came down. It was a shootout in Baton Rouge. And if it's a shootout this year, I'll be surprised because I don't know if LSU can stay with them if Ole Miss gets cranked up. Because, like you said, Kiffin, he would like to put some points on the board this weekend. And Ole Miss really has more to play for in LSU because they're kind of still in it. They're only lost 1 game. They're still in it, saying.
Yeah, they are. That's going to be a fun game. 2:30, LSU, Ole Miss, up in Oxford. Ron, once again, man, you've been another great guest. Thank you very much for coming on with us, talking LSU football. We may need to get you on and just talk college football as a whole, too. I know you definitely follow it as well. Once again, Ron Higgins from TigerRagMagazine.com has been on the 4-Star Sports Show with us. Got to give a quick shout-out to our sponsor before we get out of here. BA Mask, Alan McFerrin and Company doing a great job. Forging the future of face masks. Justin Tuck, Robert Condice in the NFL. There's the lacrosse players. They're now in the NIL world as well. You can now be a BA athlete. Check them out, bamask.com. For Brandon Bumgarner, I am Wes Pruitt. Once again, Mr. Ron Higgins, thank you very much for joining us on the 4-Star Sports Show. We appreciate it. We are out, fellas. Thank you all very much. Have a good night.
See ya.